Hello, and welcome to episode 9 of Mr. L's Bell. It is yours truly, Mr. L from Mr. L's Tutoring and Enrichment, where a passion for teaching meets the science of behavior. So, today I wanted to get a little more technical and start speaking specifically about two different types of reinforcement well, it's not even reinforcement, it's actually conditioning. So, two different kinds of conditioning that many people have heard of but may not know the details about. So, the two kinds of conditioning that I'm talking about today are going to be classical conditioning and operant conditioning. So those two different kinds of conditioning are really two different ways to associate a reinforcer with a external event. So one that many people may be, if they are psych majors or if they've actually gone through like Psych 101, a very, very popular one, we'll start with classical conditioning. And a very popular way to reference it is called Pavlov's dog. And so the whole story of Pavlov's dog is that when they were going to feed the animals, they would ring the bell beforehand. And then the dogs would go, "Oh, there's food." And automatically your body when you're eating produces saliva to start the digestion process. Your digestion starts before the food even gets into your mouth. To be honest, like your enzymes in your saliva are secreted, which is why you see in those cartoons drooling beforehand. All right. So classical conditioning is saying, hey, this naturally happens already, and it just happens to be paired with another stimulus. And in the example of Pavlov's dog, that stimulus is a bell. So what is happening is that I hear a bell. Well, the dog hears the bell. Then the dog comes to you and is presented with food. If that happens consistently, then it starts to connect the bell with that means I'm going to get food. All right. And that immediately starts the process of salivation because it is almost assumed that you are going to get food once you hear that bell because it's happened so often. So that right there is classical conditioning. Another way, um, another way for us to see it, to bring it into everyday world, and just in terms of car sickness, when people are in electric cars, it's a little bit different than a ICE engine. ICE engine being internal combustion engine. So internal combustion engines, like we are pretty familiar with, when you press the gas, you hear the rev, and then you feel the car pull forward and lurch forward, and your body can prepare for it. It has a lot of signals that can provide you as not the driver, which is one big thing. If you're not the driver, you do not know what's happening next. You do not know how fast we're going. You don't know when we're going to brake. So being a passenger is the same thing as being on a roller coaster. You have no control about where it's going to go, but you know it's moving. So specifically with this example, your sound from an internal combustion engine that revs up tells the passengers that their body is going to be moving forward. So just that little stimulus, that little sound, that little flag to tell you, hey, heads up, we're moving, gives your body time to tense up certain places, time to kind of brace for the movement. Now, if you move into an electric car where you don't get to hear that rev, you don't really get to hear any kind of flag or signal that, hey, look, this is going to start moving forward. You do not have that. So, right there, when the car does move forward, your body does not have the ability to brace. It doesn't know, it doesn't get a signal, oh, we're about to move forward. So, your body may not brace itself, or your core may not tighten up to make sure your organs don't move a bunch. All right. So, that's why I've started learning that people are getting car sick in electric cars because there is no warning, there is no notification that we're about to be on the move. So that is an example of classical conditioning. These things happen. There's nothing that we're manipulating about the situation. They just happen. And because they happen in tandem so often, they start to have a connection. Okay? So the next thing is operant conditioning. Operant conditioning, the easy way for me to remember this is that you have to operate on the situation. Okay? So operant conditioning is contriving, which is it's a fancy word of setting up a situation. Cat in a maze is experiencing operant conditioning. because we're telling you, here you are in the maze. If you solve it, you can get your food. Okay, so that was the thing that was about the operant conditioning, is that we set it up, we contrived the situation. Okay, now you are aware of classical conditioning, things that just happen and start to happen in pairs, and then they become related as a stimulus or a heads up before something happens. And operant conditioning takes a lot more setting up, contriving, creating the maze, then putting the mouse in the maze, and then putting reward so that it's motivated to complete the actual maze. All right, so there's operant conditioning. There's also a lever. The Skinner used to use a Skinner box where the animals only had access to a button, and when they press that button, they're fed. And they press the button, they are fed food. That is operant conditioning. You are now training the animal to press the button to acquire food. That is not a natural situation. Now, I would like for you guys to step back. Now that you have a little bit better understanding of classical conditioning plus versus operant conditioning, I want you guys to start thinking about the society that we live in. I want you to ask yourself the question, what is the operant conditioning that was set up? I will start to narrow this down and give you categories. I want you to think about TV. I want you to think about entertainment. I want politics. I want you to think about traffic laws. I want you to think about the stop sign and laws that we pass. All of these are contrived. That's the beauty of life. It's very, very dynamic, it's very complicated, and it's very intertwined. So when we start to take things apart and situations into, when you start to set them up versus like classical versus operant, we have the ability to zoom out and look at our own lives and look at our own decisions and look at our own systems in which we are a part of, systems that we are forced to legally be a part of. That's something we can talk about for sure. I mean, these become very broad questions and great conversation starters. So I would love for you guys to bring about that conversation to the people that you are around and you guys converse with. Classical conditioning, where regular natural events occur and they just have to be in tandem with other stimuli, and operant conditioning, where stimuli is arranged, people's behaviors are planned, and rewards are given based on you showing us the behavior that we want to see. All right. So, right there from Mr. L's Bell, classical conditioning and operant conditioning. All right. I hope to see you guys at the next one. And I'd love to hear back from you guys. What systems do you think are operant conditioning? And what systems do you think are classical conditioning?